Consider for a moment the enormous amount of energy you expend daily on concerns about others' opinions. How much of your existence is shaped less by your personal decisions and more by a dread of disapproval, rejection, or misunderstanding? Envision a life where you could break free from such an invisible confinement, where the burden of others' judgments no longer dictates your choices. Today, we embark on an exploration of a truth both liberating and unsettling. People are not nearly as invested in you as you might believe. This realization, far from being disheartening, possesses the power to emancipate you in unforeseen ways. Stay with me, as the ultimate insight we'll uncover together holds the most profound significance. Before we delve deeper, I extend an invitation to join our community of curious minds, thinkers, and explorers. Please subscribe, express your appreciation with a like, and share your perspectives in the comments. Your engagement helps proliferate these contemplations and sustains this vibrant space. I assure you that what we're about to explore today has the potential to permanently alter your perception of yourself, others, and the world around you. Let's start by confronting a reality many try to sidestep. The intense scrutiny you perceive yourself to be under most of the time is largely illusory. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as the spotlight effect. Research conducted at Cornell University has illustrated that individuals significantly overstate the degree to which their actions, missteps, or appearance are noticed by others. When you accidentally spill coffee on your shirt, stumble over words, or post something online only to immediately regret it, you might feel as though the entire world is observing and critiquing. Yet, the truth is, most people are engrossed in their own battles, anxieties, and insecurities to pay much attention to yours. Jean-Paul Sartre profoundly understood this in his seminal work, Being and Nothingness. He portrayed the gaze of the other as a force capable of confining us. When we picture someone observing us, we are instantly diminished, rendered an object, defined not by our intrinsic nature, but by their perception. This imagined scrutiny makes us prisoners of external viewpoints. However, Sartre also asserted that this entrapment is a predicament we willingly enter. If existence truly precedes essence, then it falls upon us to chart our own identity, irrespective of any external gaze. We possess freedom, even when we shrink from it. Reflect on this. How many times have you silenced your own voice to avoid potential embarrassment? How often have you worn a particular outfit, spoken certain words, or even pursued a specific path, not because it was your genuine desire, but because you anticipated it would please others? How much of your life is truly authentic to you? This is the challenging inquiry Sartre compels us to address. Here lies the paradox. You imagine yourself constantly under the watchful, judgmental eyes of others, yet simultaneously, you don't occupy their thoughts as prominently as you suppose. They are absorbed in their own personal dramas, rehearsing their own insecurities, and worrying about how you perceive them. Everyone is confined within their own subjective reality, their own consciousness. No one is truly as focused on you as you assume. This revelation can be daunting because if no one genuinely cares, what then provides your anchor? If the approval of others is irrelevant, where do you discover meaning? This is precisely where freedom emerges. If you cease to live for an imagined external scrutiny, you are finally at liberty to live according to your own choices, your own genuine truth. You can select projects that resonate with you personally, build relationships that feel authentic, and cultivate a way of being that mirrors your true self. But let's not rush. We must first sit with the discomfort. Sartre famously declared that existence precedes essence. What he conveyed was that we are not born with a predetermined identity. We are thrust into existence, and then it becomes our responsibility to forge who we are. But here's the crucial point. Most individuals shy away from this responsibility by seeking refuge in what Sartre termed bad faith. They convince themselves that their decisions aren't truly choices, that they are merely conforming to societal norms, traditions, or expectations. This enables them to evade accountability and blame external factors for their unhappiness. At the core of this bad faith lies an obsession with what others think. Ask yourself now, in what aspects of your life are you operating in bad faith? In which areas do you pretend that you are not free? Are you clinging to the notion that your life must be dictated by others, by their opinions, by their judgments? What might transpire if you accepted that they simply don't care as much as you imagine? Envision the possibilities. Imagine entering a room without that internal whisper suggesting you're being judged. Imagine articulating your ideas without the apprehension of ridicule. Imagine pursuing your passions without constantly calculating whether others will approve. This is not mere fantasy. It signifies the beginning of a profound transformation in consciousness. Sartre believed that freedom was both a blessing and a burden. The blessing is that no one else defines us. The burden is that we cannot escape responsibility for the people we become. Realizing that others don't genuinely care as much as we perceive them to can be liberating. Yet it concurrently confronts us with the profound weight of freedom. I promise you this, as we continue this journey together, you'll discover that what initially appears to be a harsh reality is, in fact, an immense source of personal power and resilience. In the next section, we'll explore methods to convert this insight into actionable strategies for living a more genuine, brave, and tranquil life. But before we get there, I urge you to reflect deeply. How would you alter your life if you truly believed no one was observing your every move? Consider this carefully. If people genuinely aren't as concerned with you as you imagine, why do you continue to prioritize their hypothetical opinions in your life? This is the core contradiction Jean-Paul Sartre compels us to face. We conduct our lives as if others are the arbiters of our existence. Yet deep down, they are too preoccupied with their own worries to truly notice us. Grasping this is the initial stride toward liberation. Nevertheless, the subsequent step involves learning how to live differently once this truth is internalized. The philosopher Epictetus, long before Sartre, taught that true freedom is attained when we cease attempting to control external factors. The judgments of others pertain to them, not to us. If someone mocks or misunderstands you, their reaction reveals more about their own perspective than it does about you. The Stoics understood that inner peace could only be achieved by mastering what we can influence: our thoughts, our actions, and our choices. This wisdom perfectly aligns with Sartre's emphasis on responsibility. Once you acknowledge that others aren't scrutinizing you as intently as you believe, you can reallocate that energy inwards and begin shaping the life you genuinely desire. Think about this. How many aspirations have been abandoned due to the dread of mockery? How many books remained unwritten, businesses unlaunched, or relationships unpursued, simply because someone feared appearing foolish? If you allow the perceptions of others to dictate your path, you are living what Sartre termed an inauthentic existence. You become an actor performing a role, rather than the author of your own narrative. Ask yourself now, are you the architect of your life, or merely a character in someone else's drama? When you make choices, do they stem from your genuine desires, or are they tactics to gain approval, avoid criticism, or remain hidden within the comfort of conformity? This is a challenging self-assessment, but it's essential because only by recognizing existing constraints can you commence breaking free. There's a compelling psychological phenomenon linked to this. Research indicates that most individuals overestimate the lasting impact of social judgment. You might believe that if you publicly embarrass yourself, the memory will haunt you indefinitely. Yet, studies reveal that observers quickly forget. They are so engrossed in their own lives that your missteps virtually vanish from their minds. The burden you carry for years is often a specter that exists solely in your imagination. Consider the liberation embedded in this truth. If others forget, why do you endlessly punish yourself for minor imperfections or awkward situations? Why harbor shame when no one else is maintaining the record you envision they are? When you grasp this, you unlock a deeper form of fortitude, the courage to experiment, to falter, and to rise again. Sartre posited that we are condemned to be free. But condemned doesn't signify doom. It means freedom is inescapable. You cannot evade the responsibility of choice. Every time you refrain from acting due to fear of what others might think, you are still making a choice of evasion, a choice of denial, a choice of bad faith. The question then becomes, will you utilize that freedom to conceal yourself or to create? Imagine for a moment a life where your decisions weren't controlled by the internal committee of judges in your mind. Imagine waking up each day and asking not, "What will they think of me?" but, "What will I create today? What will I pursue that holds meaning for me?" The transformation is subtle but profound. It represents the distinction between existing as a captive and living as an artist of your own existence. However, let's be clear. Living authentically doesn't imply rejecting society or severing all relationships. Sartre himself acknowledged that others are integral to our existence. We cannot, nor should we, completely erase their presence. Relationships, communities, and connections enrich our lives with meaning and depth. The issue arises only when we surrender our freedom to external perceptions, when we define ourselves solely through the imagined evaluations of others. Authentic living means striking a balance between the presence of others and the responsibility of self-creation. So, here's a practical exercise to consider the next time you feel paralyzed by the fear of someone else's opinion. Pause and ask yourself, what if they don't care at all? Play out that scenario. Consider a mistake you've made or a bold choice. Now, reflect on how swiftly it fades from others' memories. Observe the shift in significance. Recognize the surge of energy that arrives when you stop fixating on the illusion of continuous scrutiny. Viktor Frankl, a man who endured suffering most of us can barely fathom, once offered this profound insight. The ultimate freedom is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance. If this holds true even in the bleakest scenarios, it undoubtedly applies to the routine moments of daily existence. If others aren't paying as much attention as you imagine, then you are truly at liberty to decide, to act, to live fully. Let me ask you directly, what aspiration have you suppressed out of fear of what others might comment? What passion have you silenced, anticipating disapproval? Share it in the comments. Uncover it. Bring it into the light. This simple act alone can be your initial stride toward reclaiming your autonomy. And never forget, life is brief. Every instant spent dwelling on imagined criticisms is a moment pilfered from your genuine self. To live authentically is to resist this theft. In our next discussion, we'll delve into the broader implications of this understanding, moving beyond mere freedom to explore the very essence of meaning. Because once you acknowledge that others don't truly care about you as much as you believe, you're faced with the fundamental question: why am I here? What is my purpose? As thinkers like Sartre remind us, this is the profound inquiry, and its answer possesses the power to transform everything. Ponder this. If people aren't as concerned as you perceive, then the stage is yours. You stand at the core of your own existence. The pressing question then isn't, what do they think of me? But rather, what will I do with my liberation? This is the formidable yet exhilarating reality Sartre presented. Freedom devoid of purpose can feel like an emptiness. However, when freedom is embraced with responsibility, it becomes the canvas upon which you paint your life's story. Many shy away from this void, preferring the comfort of perceived external judgment as it offers a sense of direction. If society dictates your identity, if others assign your roles, you can evade the formidable responsibility of self-determination. This is precisely why Sartre accused so many of living in bad faith. They clutch onto roles, identities, and expectations not because these truly reflect who they are, but because it spares them the unsettling openness of true freedom. Yet this is the unvarnished truth. When you cease to fret about external opinions, you are compelled to confront the raw elements of your being. What do you truly value? What are your desires? Who do you aspire to become? These questions may be uncomfortable, but they mark the genesis of authenticity. Let's consider the concept of meaning. Sartre rejected the notion of a predetermined purpose, arguing that life possesses no inherent meaning until we actively create it. For many, this sounds bleak, but take a moment to reflect. Is it not far more empowering to realize you are not bound by a script written before your birth? You are not confined to a role you didn't select. You possess the freedom to invent, to sculpt, to decide. This is not despair. It is true liberation. The psychologist Rollo May, deeply influenced by existential philosophy, taught that anxiety is the inherent cost of freedom. When we no longer rely on external authorities to define us, we experience the tremor of uncertainty. Nevertheless, it is precisely this tremor that signals growth. Imagine scaling a mountain. Your legs may tremble, your breath may shorten, but each upward step expands your perspective. Similarly, the anxiety linked with freedom is the gateway to a more profound vision. Let's draw a parallel to our contemporary world. Never before have we been so acutely aware of others' opinions. Social media intensifies the scrutiny. Every post, every photograph, every comment feels like an audition for validation. But pause and genuinely consider, how often do you fleetingly scroll through endless feeds, barely registering others before moving on? This is exactly how you are perceived by others: ephemeral, fleeting, forgotten almost as quickly as you appeared. The supposed arena of judgment is little more than a blur of distracted glances. Knowing this, why attribute so much importance to something so insubstantial? Instead of squandering your freedom on an incessant quest for validation, what if you channeled it into creation? Reflect on the artists, philosophers, and innovators who have profoundly influenced the world. Do you genuinely believe they were exempt from criticism? Of course not. Sartre himself faced ridicule, resistance, and misunderstanding. Yet he did not alter his existence to silence those detractors. Instead, he chose to write, to create, to express. In doing so, he shaped the intellectual landscape of an entire century. The same principle applies to you, albeit on a personal scale. Your life is your unique endeavor. Each day you are writing it, molding it, giving it form. The apprehension of judgment snatches the pen from your grasp. But when you recall that no one is truly keeping tabs, the pen is returned to you. What kind of narrative do you intend to share? Allow me to provide an illustration. Visualize yourself entering a chamber filled with unfamiliar faces. A sense of unease washes over you. Your thoughts race, questioning their perceptions. What are their thoughts about me? Do I appear absurd? Do I belong here? However, momentarily reframe your viewpoint. Every single person in that space is undergoing the precise internal monologue about themselves. They are not fixated on you. Rather, they are absorbed in their own self-consciousness. The remarkable irony is that everyone is ensnared by their personal dread of observation, yet no one is genuinely observing. The confinements exist solely within the mind. Therefore, I pose this to you. If these barriers are illusory, why not traverse them? Why not embrace life boldly, unreservedly, and authentically? Why not pursue what ignites your spirit, understanding that the scrutiny you dread is merely a projection of your own imagination? Viktor Frankl, whose philosophical insights were forged amidst the atrocities of concentration camps, posited that meaning is discovered not in comfort, but in accountability. We forge meaning by deliberately choosing our responses to the challenges we face. Even suffering can acquire significance when approached with valor and determination. If this holds true in the most extreme circumstances, it undoubtedly applies to the everyday skirmishes of our lives. Thus, here lies the challenge. This week, take a single action that embodies your true self, even if it feels perilous. Articulate the truth you have withheld. Initiate the project you have postponed. Share your passion without filtering it through the supposed judgments of others. Then, observe what unfolds. You will likely ascertain that the storm of condemnation you anticipated never materializes. The audience you envisioned watching remains silent. And in that quietude, you will perceive something different. Your own voice, steadfast and distinct. Yet our journey is not complete. A profounder truth still awaits, the one I hinted at from the very beginning. A truth more potent than all others. It's not merely that others care less than you imagine. It's that this very absence of judgment can unlock a revolutionary form of affection and connection. When you no longer require external validation to define you, you are finally liberated to engage with others as they genuinely are, devoid of apprehension, unburdened by facades. And that is our ultimate destination. In the concluding segment, we will unearth how this understanding culminates not just in freedom, but in a fresh comprehension of connection, purpose, and perhaps the profoundest truth Sartre intimated, but never fully elucidated. Remain with me until the end, for the ultimate revelation possesses the power to genuinely revolutionize your perception of yourself and the world. So, here we are. We initiated our exploration with a straightforward yet disquieting truth. Nobody is as concerned about you as you assume. We delved into the burden of imagined scrutiny, the delusion of being in the spotlight, and the liberation that arises when we cease living as captives of an imagined gaze. We confronted the apprehension of responsibility, the arduous task of forging meaning, and the intrinsic courage required to live authentically. However, we must now venture deeper into the most potent insight of all, the one I promised from the outset. What if the very fact that no one is observing you as intently as you believe is not a detriment, but a profound advantage? What if this realization could lead not solely to emancipation, but also to a novel classification of connection and endearment, one that is more profound, more genuine, and completely devoid of illusions? Consider this. If you are no longer enslaved by the fictitious judgments of others, then the necessity to perform vanishes. You are no longer compelled to adopt personas or play prescribed roles. You can encounter others not as performers on a stage vying for approval, but as fellow human beings, standing in unison amidst the shared enigma of existence. Sartre, although frequently regarded as a philosopher of desperation, alluded to this potential. While he characterized freedom as a burden, he also left room for the notion that within our freedom, we possess the agency to choose solidarity, to choose connection, and to choose to embrace another not as an arbiter, but as a comrade. When you relinquish the preoccupation with how you are perceived, something transformative occurs. You begin to genuinely see others, not as judges, not as mirrors reflecting your insecurities, but as individuals burdened by their own struggles, anxieties, and aspirations. You begin to grasp that just as no one scrutinizes you as closely as you believe, they too feel unobserved, unheard, and overlooked. And from this recognition, empathy emerges. This is the deeper truth. The understanding that nobody truly cares liberates you from fear, but it also awakens your capacity to care. Because when you cease demanding external validation, you free yourself to offer authentic presence, undivided attention, and genuine affection. You stop pondering, "What are their thoughts about me?" and begin inquiring, "Who are they truly? What burdens do they carry? How can I engage with them without masks, without pretense?" The philosopher Martin Buber elucidated this in his seminal work, I and Thou. He articulated two modes of relating, one superficial and transactional, where others are objectified, viewed as items to be judged, exploited, or feared. The alternative is a genuine encounter where we connect with another as a thou, a presence as substantial as our own. According to Buber, this is where the sacred truly manifests. It's within the space between two authentically present individuals that something profound is unveiled. Envision engaging with life this way. Picture yourself entering a conversation, not preoccupied with your image, but entirely focused on the person before you. Imagine expressing love without craving validation, listening without the filter of insecurity, and connecting without the burden of putting on a show. This is where liberation blossoms into empathy, where personal freedom transforms into shared humanity. And here lies the paradox. When you cease to be overly concerned with others' perceptions of you, you actually become more appealing, more captivating, and more genuine. People are drawn to authenticity precisely because of its scarcity. In a world where everyone is performing, the person who dares to be real becomes a beacon in the darkness. That light shines not by seeking attention, but simply by existing. Now, I'd like to leave you with a concluding thought. Your life will eventually conclude. The opinions you dreaded, the judgments you envisioned, the spotlight you felt was on you, none of it will ultimately matter. What will genuinely matter is whether you lived authentically, whether you forged meaning, whether you loved profoundly, and whether you left a mark of truth in a world often obscured by illusions. Sartre once wrote that freedom is defined by what you choose to do with what has been done to you. You cannot control life's inherent fragility, its uncertainties, or the potential for others to misunderstand you. However, you can control how you interpret that reality. You can choose to live in hiding or to live creatively. You can exist in fear or in freedom. You can cling to facades or stand unmasked, daring to be seen for who you truly are, even if most of the time no one is actually paying close attention. And perhaps, just perhaps, that's the whole point. Life isn't a performance for others. It's a creation for yourself, and a gift you can offer to those whose paths intersect with yours. The freedom you once feared becomes the fertile ground for authenticity. The loneliness you dreaded evolves into the foundation of compassion. The realization that no one cares about you as much as you think becomes the gateway to a profound truth. In your freedom, you possess the power to care for yourself, for others, and for life itself. So, as we conclude this exploration, I urge you to carry this with you. Stop fretting so much over nothing. Break free from the prison of imagined judgment. Reclaim the narrative and write your own story. Live authentically, love deeply, and create boldly. Because in the end, the only true failure is to have existed without ever genuinely living. And now, I pose the question back to you. What will you do with your freedom? How will you live knowing that the gaze you feared was never truly there? Share your insights below, and let's continue this conversation together. Remember, no one is observing as closely as you believe. So live not for their gaze, but for your own truth. And within that truth, you might uncover the most powerful freedom of all. Thank you for reading.